Yeah, we talk grind, we talk goals, street hustle, rhythm control, ideas cooking flame on high. No shortcuts, just do or die. 86 opinions, both precision, no permission. We build a vision, we rise, we move, we own this lane. 86 opinions, remember the name. Real talk, no filters needed. If it's raw truth, we feed it.
All right, good morning. We are here with Keith Wright, who is the owner of an awesome food truck concept that is based out of the greater Grand Rapids, Michigan area. He's been in business for quite some time now. I know he's got some ideas of other things that he's working on. He is also the creator, purveyor, mastermind, whatever you want to call it, behind the West Michigan Food Truck and Catering Group on Facebook, which has done an amazing efforts and everything that he puts into that of getting business, not just for himself, but like the entire food truck community in West Michigan as a whole. So without further ado, Keith, how are we doing this morning?
Doing well, doing well. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the 86 Opinions podcast and kind of giving us a rundown of what it's like in the day-to-day life of a food trucker in today's world. So could you just do a solid real quick, man, and give us the story behind this amazing Waffle Sticks brand that you've created?
Well, we actually initially launched the trailer. I don't know if you kind of see it behind us here. We launched that trailer back in 2018 as it was something called the Snack Shack, and we had everything but waffle sticks on there. We had cotton candy, we had nachos, we had snow cones. We had every concession stand thing. That was kind of the concept that came into initially into the industry. But we realized very quickly we kept getting our butts kicked by the elephant ear guy and things that were kind of singular that had a hook to it. And what we had on board at the time, everybody had, almost everybody at these events had those items in one form or another. So there was nothing really unique about us. So we dove deep into the pit of the internet, found the concept of the waffle on a stick. And then we created a whole menu around it. We worked with a group out of Seattle for quite some time. It's still kind of where we get a lot of our equipment and stuff. But then we just started realizing that we could really be creative and unique with this. So we've created this robust, menu that we have. We have over 30 items and counting, and sometimes we take some off, put some on. But we found the response to this comparatively to our initial brand is so it's still overwhelming. I was kind of telling you before we got started, I had a couple of young guys from North Carolina spot us out going down the freeway, and they felt the need to call me and talk about this awesome song that you guys created for us, as a matter of fact. And then just they were going through our website and our social media, and the response that they gave us that day, it's the encouragement that 7 years later into this particular brand, and probably 70, 80,000 waffles later, that we need to kind of go like, okay, people are still responding to this. People are still enjoying this concept, and it still resonates.
And I feel like that's important in the food truck world because it's so easy to get caught up in the daily grind and the hustle, because make no doubt about it, no matter how much you niche down your menu, it's a hustle, it's a job, and it's a demanding job. And so to still get that feedback 7 years later has got to be amazing for you guys.
It's encouraging. It literally is the fuel that keeps the fire going. It's like just like you're saying, any job, and whether it's a business or not, everything gets to be a grind at some point. And I'll tell you, I was much like most of the people that probably thought that, oh, a food truck, well, let's get into this. No big deal. It's easy. Well, it's probably one of the most physically demanding jobs. Not even just the on the truck making the product, but there's so many other moving components to it that you never really take into consideration until you get knee deep into it.
Absolutely. I think there's a sexiness to it that a lot of people see. You can go out in 5 hours and you might sell 1,000 waffle sticks in that 5 hours, but people don't see the 5 hours of prep that you had to get there, and the 5 hours of cleanup and everything that you had to do to settle that day. And what appears to be a 5 hour day literally turns into a 12 to 15 hour day pretty darn quick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You can become a plumber, electrician, and a food guy all in 6, 7 hours.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. So the way that your brand started, with when you said you had all the snow cones and the cotton candy and the other things that you were doing, what was the true inspiration? And I don't know, maybe I missed it when you were talking, but what was the true inspiration about settling with the waffle on the stick? Was it because no one else was doing it, or was there something else unique you found about it?
Well, it was something I wasn't familiar with. There was a couple different things. There was nobody doing it currently, right? I mean, at least within Michigan, there was nobody that was marketing, and I think there might have been a few operations that tried it and already wrapped up by the time we launched it in 2019. Excuse me. We liked one of the big things for us is that we wanted to keep, we learned quickly having lemonade, snow cones, all this other stuff. We had to have all these different things, different items, different stock items, and we're always running into problems that we adopted the Gordon Ramsay's the KISS method, right? The keep it simple, stupid, and we've primarily done that the whole time, and that's one of the things. So when I realized that we could really funnel that concept into that kind of food program like that, it spoke to us right away. We thought as soon as we kind of recognized it, and then we started playing with some logos and some concepts and some menus, we realized that well, this might be something kind of special, something that not everybody is going to get a chance to see. So which is
Yeah.
still to this day we hear people like, oh my gosh, are you guys you brand new? It's like, no.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing how you hear that you're in the weeds. You go out to all these festivals. I know you do a lot of like community events for certain businesses. We saw you at the Meyer in Rockford, Michigan. I'm sure you do. You do roadside and other places. So you take the food truck gamut and you kind of hit every little wicket. And so sometimes it's amazing to realize that we're out there doing this stuff, but like people still don't know that we exist, right?
Oh yeah.
So you're still having customers that find you for the first time. What's that reaction like when you see people take that waffle stick for the first time? Like what brings the joy in it for you?
Well, I'll tell you, especially we've got a couple different ones. They all look pretty nice coming out the window. I mean, I think so at least, but especially the ones that we had a little whipped cream and stuff, maybe some sprinkles or what, and then you hand it off to a kid or just to any other, even an adult for that matter, and they see it for the first time and they're genuinely excited. We're here in Rockford at the moment at St. Julian's Winery. We set up usually about once a week over here, and I watched a lady here last week sitting in her car dancing while she was eating. I thought she was on the phone or making a video. She was just so genuinely excited about the food she was eating. So it's those are the kind of responses, and just the
Sure.
wow, or and this isn't to sound conceited or anything, but every now and then we get these remarks like, this is a brilliant idea. I can't believe I've never heard of anything like this and stuff. So those are the things that make me think, okay, we're still on the right track. We're still, we've got some, like you mentioned, we want to do some different things down the line, but we think we're still on the right track. We're still doing.
That's great, man, and like that's important in today's world for me personally because I'm a firm believer. I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but like in the world we live in now, it's like negativity is so loud. So to see that positivity over something that brings us together, food brings people together, and
That's
at
right.
the end of the day, that's what it's all about is seeing them positive reactions of people when they try it. So I love that for you. What's something that maybe people don't realize about the craft or the process behind your food that you do? Is there anything unique to it that you'd like to kind of put that out to people right now? What would you tell them?
Well, the uniqueness of it, I guess, is it's probably more the simplicity of things. We created our truck, our trailer, and our concept all even to be not even just food simplicity, but even the concept of the trailer behind it. Very quickly, if you have fryers, you're cooking meats or whatever, with meat vapors or whatever vapor that you have to have a overhead fan or an overhead hood, fire suppression, all this stuff, and then propane. We eliminated all that. We went to an all electric setup, which is we're a firefighter's dream usually when he comes up and sees us because we've got everything's
Yeah.
pretty streamlined. We don't have to have a costly fire suppression system installed, so it put the upfront costs, in a lot more reasonable than a full service food truck. Now that was one aspect of it, and then also we don't deal with a lot of raw foods, so we don't cut fruits and vegetables. We're not cooking chicken on board. We're using, we source fully cooked, shelf stable, depending on what it is, type of items that we can rip the bag and run and go. But we know it's good. We've tried it. We've tried, usually multiple types of whatever item it is, but we try and keep things sanitary. If that's, I guess, for me, more of a sanitary issue. I don't. It's a small space. Uh, Cross contamination is always already on top of mind, and it's hard to be in a 120 square feet or whatever it is of actual workspace, and and keep everything, especially if you're dealing with, if we were to be dealing with raw chickens, or even like from the health department's perspective, you start cutting lemons and limes, and so it's a big deal, and understandably, because it's important to keep all that stuff clean. So those are just some things that we kept in mind, and kind of made sure, like, that we've always kept that mentality when we're adding new items, or we're going to if we're going to consider different concepts on the board and things to that extent.
Dude, I think you nailed something on the head that a lot of people don't think about when they get into this business, because you know that I came from the barbecue background.
Right.
Logistical
Yeah.
nightmare in a food truck. I mean, it's not that it's not doable, but it's a logistical nightmare. I mean, the 18-hour cooks and the preserving and the holding and the raw product and then your cooked product, and I mean, there's just so many things that go back and forth. And the last year that we had our restaurant, when we kind of did our rebrand so that we could sell, I had a lot of things going on in my personal life. My father passed away. I had to have shoulder surgery. Like, there was no way I was running a logistical barbecue restaurant with 3 or 4 people that required 18 people in the previous years to run. And we literally dummied down to a cafe style menu where I was getting pre-smoked brisket and pre-smoked pulled pork just for our rebrand to sell the restaurant during my shoulder surgery. And I remember sitting there in the mornings. I would walk down and I would get my prep done, and I would get done and I would look around and I would go, what am I forgetting, man? Like, the ability to speed up all these processes but still maintain that high quality of food that people are used to is a very tricky road to navigate. So kudos to you guys for doing that, man. That's awesome.
We're trying our best, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So when people see your food truck roll in, when they see Waffle, whether it be a kid's birthday party, whether it be roadside, whether it be a festival you're going to, what do you want people to feel when they see your food truck roll in?
Well, it's kind of along the lines of, we've evolved from, we're a food trailer, but we've really, especially the last 2 years here, we've embraced the concept that we're actually more of an experience based food trailer. Though we're like, it's not just
So,
about,
so
hey,
important.
it's cool that they enjoy the food and everything, and it is, that's obviously the most important part, but we play music, we're trying to create an atmosphere, an ambiance. If we're going to go feed a bunch of people at lunch at a company, we want them to enjoy themselves, come out. We are probably the fastest truck you're gonna see. I know that's probably a little, pat myself on the back, but we've
Pat, pat,
curated.
man, pat, pat.
Yeah, well, we've curated these processes to be able to get food out quickly to people when it's hot, it's fresh, it's good. Enjoy. One of the first things we hear usually when we get up, and if people aren't familiar with us, they're like, and it's funny because especially if we're at a big event or something, like, we'll literally 20, 30 times a day, we'll hear people just walking by going, Waffle Sticks? What is that? Waffle Sticks. That is literally the number one question. And the number two question usually is, where are we located, which we're all over the place. So, but yeah, we really, it's an enjoyment process. We want people to really, feel the energy from the truck. Our whole team is very professional. We not that we require people to be really friendly at the window, but we tend to hire people that have a little more personality and really want to engage with people and make it just a little more than a transaction,
Sure,
so.
sure. Man, that day that we were out there at your place doing the video, the guys you had in the truck, they were great, man. They were so good with, like, the Meyer employees and the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
They kept the vibe going, and you could just tell that they had that sense of, I don't know if camaraderie is the word, but they just had that sense of enjoyment when they were inside the trailer working, right? And it was really awesome to see. So you've
And that was a
definitely
hot day
nailed that.
too.
Say that again.
That was a hot day too. I remember that day. It was probably about 100
It
degrees
was.
inside that trailer. We do our best to cool it off, but man, it's you got 300-400 degree irons going. It's a battle you can't win some days.
Without
But
a
yeah,
doubt.
but our team is awesome. We've been lucky over the years. We've had a lot of great people, but the team we got together now, they're very experienced, very seasoned, and they understand what we're trying to accomplish. It's something. It's an unspoken thing now, which it's nice to be able to get to that point sometimes. Where you're not having to instruct people all the time. They already understand what the process is. They understand what the end product expectations are, and just let them go. And sometimes, honestly, Doug, it's for me to get out of the way. I find sometimes if I get myself, I love working and I love interacting with people, but in order for our people to really be able to fully engage in it, they need me to let them do their jobs. And once we really started doing that, that's really let them grow, and it's empowered them to really, take it seriously, and really, and take some pride in what they're doing.
Yeah, I want to focus on what you just said there for a second because what you just said is kind of a big basis for us on why we went with this podcast name of the 86th opinions. 86 obviously being a term in the restaurant industry of something sold out or get rid of it. Um, and this is a personal feeling, and I get a lot of blast back personally on this myself sometimes. A lot of restaurant and food truck owners are too much in the weeds of their own business, and it causes them not to be able to see the big picture of the actual business. So, how hard of a process was it for you to watch your baby and just kind of be able to take that step back and say, you know what, these guys got it. I've just got to be able to focus on the business and actually relinquish that control a little bit because it might be easy for you, maybe it's not, I don't know, but it's hard for a lot of restaurant owners to do that.
It's not easy. You spend a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears coming up with these processes, coming up with the concepts and everything. And you don't want to have somebody just come in and willy nilly screw it up for you. But there's also there's an aspect, just what you say, in order to create growth, there has to be, you have to let go. I'm still learning, Doug, to do it. Like when it comes to on the truck stuff, our team, great. That's totally not a problem anymore. But there's still certain things like, towing our equipment around and stuff. Those are things I'm still learning to, let that go. And eventually that's where we're going to be. We're wanting to add another trailer here for next year. So in order to do that, we're going to have more and more people engaged with that. But it's, the difference, is amazing because we've always got good reviews, but it's so rewarding at the end of a shift when I get feedback. Either sometimes somebody tells us directly, or it was, even a compliment that came through Square or something about how great these guys were and how wonderful they were and treated everybody with dignity and respect or a lot of fun or so it's very rewarding. It's those are the times you realize you go, okay, I should have done this a long time ago, probably. What I mean? But I'm just like everybody else you're talking about. It's hard to let go, but there's a stagnancy that stays there when you can't let go, I think, and we were there. We've been through the ups, the downs. We've ridden the industry roller coasters, which we still are right now. Things are changing as we're speaking right now, even, I think.
What do you think is the biggest change that you see happening in the food truck world right now? What's your take on that?
I think I think there's a lot of things. Right now, it's a weird year. We came out of a hard election, I think, last year. People are a little weird economically, but I think within the industry itself, you have, I've told you this. I used to work in the wireless telecommunication industry for almost 20 years, and I started when it was very raw. There was not a lot of rules and regulations, so we were kind of making them as we're going along. And I think that's kind of part of why I really have enjoyed the being in this industry, because we've been through that process now with the food truck industry, where it's like, hey, we're all just kind of kicking the tire down the road together, trying to see how this goes. But now you're starting to see some more regulation come on board. You're starting to see, I think, the general public, we're not the shiny toy we were 4, 5, 6 years ago. You can't just pull up and sell out. You've got to bring more to the table now. One of the biggest viral videos I've seen just in the last I think the last month and a half, was the guy that got on there and was talked about when did food trucks become more expensive than restaurants, and when did it take 2 hours to get served? Why, it wasn't. I didn't think that was the purpose for this kind of an operation. So I listened to that and saw that, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think there's a lot of different people that probably need to take a little closer look at how they're doing business. We had what we called our food truths for about 2 or 3 years, where we're like, okay, this is how we're doing business. We know this works. We're not going to deviate from this. And then we didn't. And then we started in it, which was great for a while. But as things have evolved, we found that we've actually had to become much more fluid than we thought we'd be. We need to make slight adjustments either way to make sure that we're still profitable, we're still, desirable, and all that, those kind of things. We're finding now that we're trying to look around and seeing what's working in other areas. Not being afraid to maybe try some different things. Whether we're setting up in some different areas that we wouldn't normally do, just to see how things, see how things
Testing,
go.
testing,
Yeah,
testing
we're
out
we're
yeah.
yeah testing different concepts, and sometimes I think the one thing that's underrated for a lot of food trucks is the exposure. We even sometimes if it's like, hey, the cash register didn't tell us we had a great day, the exposure we received, or the fact that, hey, down the line someone's like, hey, I saw you sitting there, and I've got a class of 150 people I want to feed. So we get a catering gig. Something we
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
payoff sometimes is later down the line. And being able to understand that as well, I think has been, it's been
Man,
a pro.
say that louder for the owners in the back, because that is huge, huge, huge. I think that as a whole, food trucks especially, restaurants, have a brick and mortar, people got to come to you. But
Oh yeah.
food trucks especially, anytime that you go out, you're marketing and you're branding. It doesn't matter if you're driving down the road, it doesn't matter if you're getting gas, it doesn't matter if you're serving food. You are marketing and you are branding, and it's you have this idea that I can see it in you, and I watch you as your business has grown over the last handful of years, in the sense that you are ever learning and you're adapting. We talked a little bit about this prior to getting into this podcast, in the sense that that's what's surviving in this economy is whether it's a truck, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a restaurant, the willingness to adapt and pay attention to what's going on is really what's setting people ahead. Would you?
I would agree 100%. I think you need to be willing to listen to the people at the window sometimes. What
Yeah.
are they saying to you? What's the feedback on, how did they, we, one of the things we talk about, my family and I we're probably a weird set of folks. We're rather analytical. We like to look at things from a business perspective. And, we talk about perceived value quite a bit, right? If the person that came to the window doesn't feel like they're getting the perceived value they paid for something, it. You can see it on their face. They're giving that look like, that's all I'm getting for this amount and stuff. And we've been there, where we're a little heavy on the pricing and stuff, or they'll come to our window complaining about other people's,
Hmm.
pricing food or whatever.
Hmm.
So, trying to understand, how to price your stuff menu wise properly in this industry is very hard.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be hard, but I mean, I think you have to understand there's a perceived value to things, Doug, right? Like if you're selling donuts, guess what? Everybody has a perceived value of what a donut or a box of donuts should go for roughly, because they can get it at the grocery store, they can get it wherever. So understanding how to adjust your pricing accordingly, and trying to meet the demand, that's the demand, or even sometimes being willing to listen to some of the feedback you're getting, and again, making some of those slight adjustments we're talking about. I mean, you can't listen to everybody that comes to the window, because everybody's got an idea how you should run your business and what you should offer and this and that. So, I mean, which is all great, and we like having those conversations, but you filter out the stuff you need to, but there's some gold in those nuggets too
Yeah.
sometimes.
I actually used to have a sign up in my restaurant that said, "Your opinion is not part of my recipe." And I think there's some comical truth behind that, but I also love the term that you used with perceived value, because that is huge in especially the food truck world.
Hmm.
I I actually just kind of I put out some content the other day. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but I would kind of touched on the fact that perceived value, sometimes, instead of a restaurant food truck owners attacking it a different way to show the atmosphere, the vibe, and the excitement behind what you have, we get stuck in this rigmarole of just giving a discount. And I feel like then what we do is we lower our perceived value for our, not necessarily for that one waffle stick. That waffle stick might still have a perceived value of whatever it may be, but because we're constantly giving discounts, now my brand has a perceived lower value than what everybody else is doing, right? And I'm only going to get the bargain hunters. I'm not going to get the repeat customers when I'm running regular price stuff.
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, and you're setting a precedent as well. And then sometimes what some people don't understand, you're setting a precedent for other people, right? When you're selling it at one, they're going to go to your colleague down the road next week and go, wait a minute, I got this same kind of plate from Doug, and it was only
Yeah.
16 bucks. You're charging me 18 or 19 bucks and all that
What
stuff. So
why did you, and I know why, I just kind of want you to hear you speak about it. Why did you refer to that truck down the road as your colleague and not your competition?
Oh, you know what? It's a couple different things. I'm a man of faith. I try my best, at least, flawed like everybody. But we look at things as those are our partners, right? We there's a competition, I mean, for sales, but I mean, there is really enough. There's enough to go around for everybody, especially when you have different kinds. If you're smart, and if you're if you're going to align yourself with different people, that you've got complementary menus where you can kind of play off of one another. Or even if not, I don't care if you're two barbecue guys and you sit and kick it around about the best way to, do this or do that. We kind of have this philosophy of the high tide rises all boats. And that's really, when you talked about the website or the Facebook group we have, the West Michigan Food Truck and Catering Network. That's the concept behind it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I get business from there, but
Sure, of course.
I help a lot more businesses than what we get. And that's cool. That's what we want. We want it to be a tool for not only other business owners and other mobile food vendors and catering companies, but also for the end clients or the people that are seeking these trucks for events or whatever, to have them have one repository kind of to connect, for everybody. I find a lot of enjoyment for the fact that other people are they're able to help build their business from that. We on occasion have, we answer questions on the back end. I try not to put too much of that on the site itself. I try and keep it as clean as possible. But for the most part, though, most of the other food vendors, I get it. We know how hard it is, from day to day. I would rather. There's sometimes, we'll get these events that call and they're like, oh, we want 4 or 5 trucks here, blah, blah, blah. But we run through the numbers. We've done this long enough. We know what numbers works for us, right? What we need for possible attendance, versus the amount of food vendors they're looking for and what that event really calls for. And I'll tell people and be honest with them, like, listen, I would rather not show up there and let those guys have a great day than me show up and we all have a lackluster, kind of so-so day,
Yeah, because you're always going to be able to find another spot. You're going to have your day, and it's not always about, so to say, shitting in someone else's Wheaties, right?
No,
And
and I get it, but from the people. I'm sorry, the event people want to, variety is the spice of life, and I get that too. But the health of the vendor to me is what's most important. And I say health, it's the financial health. We all need to be able to turn some bucks and be okay. And you're right, we can always find a different location to go to, and or sometimes it's just educating people too, Doug. Honestly, just people, they're like, well, they want trucks, they don't think of anything else other than that. And then sometimes just to be transparent, honest with people. Sometimes people don't always take it the right way, but I just try and be forthright and be like, hey, here's what's going on. I'll let them know. I'm like, this is how we figure things, and go through the process, the actual percentages of, who we think is going to eat, roughly how many meals will be available out of your event. And it just doesn't support that many,
Right.
vendor, whatever,
I shouldn't quantify it with a number, but I think it is most a lot. I'll say a lot. A lot of event organizers always have the ambitions that their event's going to be much bigger than what it is, right? And so, as food truckers, we've all been burned at those events, and you learn the hard way. It's kind of like your prospecting era, in the food truck
Mhm.
world, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we still get burned every now and then,
sure. I love the fact that the mentality of that truck that's sitting across from me is my competition. I love the fact that that mentality is dying in the industry. I really do.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen more trucks succeed off of fostering a relationship with other vendors and than I have the ones that put up that roadblock be successful, if I said that correctly. Yeah.
No, yeah, no, it sounds great. No, and you're right. I mean, honestly, especially if I can't do an event, it's great. We've gotten a chance to really meet a lot of different food vendors, a lot of different varieties of menus they offer and stuff. So when we have somebody call us or reach out to us, and if we're not available, I gladly give certain referrals. I want them to go to somebody that's qualified, that's going to give them a great experience, and I want them to remember that I gave it to them. Not for any other reason, just the fact that we were honest and good, and we tried to make sure that they were taken care of more importantly than us. Why I always want to be the one to offer that experience. If we can't be, then we'd rather one of our vendor friends be able to do it, or even if it's a newer truck and we can help them get traction, whatever, whatever is available.
Absolutely. When it comes to whether it be events, just business in general, what's your perspective on the marketing tools and automations that are out there and how they help or how they could help a food truck or restaurant grow? What is your take on that economy right now?
Well, I mean, listen, I think AI is changing everything, and I would be remiss to tell you I'm like some sort of an AI expert. I am learning how to converse with AI, right? And not just to help me write me an email, maybe, you know what I mean, or a post, which is nice, but to be able to actually have conversations with that this technology, and it to spit out real, tangible, information back to me, stuff that I can actually use. That's been one of the biggest things. When I first started, we paid somebody to come up with our logo, and we had to get some marketing help and this and that. And now with the advent of not only AI, but maybe Canva and a few of these other tools, CapCut, whatever you want to use, there's all these different things. But you can become a quasi graphic designer at home. But not only that, I mean, we use it for so many other things. I bounce business ideas off my AI bot now, and it knows our business well enough. It'll, and sometimes I'll tell it, like, just be brutally honest. Just
I was just going to say, sometimes it is a little brutally honest, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you know what? If I don't want it to be nice. I want it to be honest, and and sometimes it takes that to make me realize that, okay, maybe maybe we're not on the right track, or maybe these are some changes we should be making and stuff. So, those tools, though, have allowed us to engage in social media in a way that we hadn't been, where we're much more consistent. We have more of a kind of an on-point branding that we've been going for and kind of sticking to that. AI actually told me that he's like, you're all over the board, man. You're going to have to, pick a theme kind of and run with it. And so it's those kinds of things and I think if you're willing, because some people think AI, it's going to take over the world and, we're going to all be working for robots in 2 years. And, maybe we will. I don't know. I don't really take that look at it. And I try to use it rather than fight it. I want to use it to our advantage.
You know what my number one question it would be when somebody steps up to me and says, this stuff's going to take over the world and I don't like it, yada, yada, yada. Well, in the interim of that 2 years, if you're telling me that this technology is good enough to take over the world, don't you think it can sell a few waffle sticks along the way?
No, there's no doubt. Or tell me where I'm doing wrong, or when we're looking to have some growth and stuff, and it's giving me concepts and opinions and things that we would have never thought of on our own, honestly, and just some honest feedback. And then plus the repository of information it has to pull from, right, is really amazing, because I mean, it can pull things that I'm not thinking of, because a lot of times we look at things based on other successful food brands, right? Whether it's McDonald's or Little Caesars or whatever these things are, like one of my favorite movies is The Founder. And it's kind of a weird movie because it's about Ray Kroc and the McDonald's story, right? And how they did that.
Yes.
And so the McDonald's guys, there was the McDonald's brothers. They were the ones that were just, they had to be 2 pickles, 1/4 ounce of ketchup, 1/4 ounce of whatever it was. I don't even remember the measurements, and the consistency, those are the things that we're always striving to kind of repeat in our own business. Replicate, I guess, is probably a better term for that. And that tool, though, helps us stay into that lane. Amen. A lot of times.
Amen. Yeah. And it's funny that you brought up Ray Kroc. So I was just reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
Oh yeah. So Robert Kiyosaki.
So you'll know this answer then, because he's mentioned in that book, and that's where Pat and I were just having, my creative director, we were just having a big conversation about this yesterday in Grand Rapids, is that if you asked Ray Kroc what business he was in, it wasn't hamburgers and it wasn't food. Did you ever hear that? Oh, you read the book.
I know exactly what I know. Yeah, and it's McDonald's biggest moneymaker. You can say it, though.
Real estate.
That's right. They're a real estate company.
He's in real estate. And
right.
So it's just amazing how the perception of what we see as the public and what we would equate that to, of how there's just so many levels and layers underneath it, even in just like the food truck world, the restaurant world. It's so much deeper if we take a step back and look at it from a true business owner's perspective and not just a food truck operator. When you allow yourself to step back from it and be an actual business owner, it expands so much for your horizons and your brand. And I think that a lot of times as food truck and restaurant owners, we get stuck in the daily grind because, you have to make the customer happy. That's first and foremost above anything, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you worry about your commitments you've made, making sure hey, I got to feed 100 people here or whatever the case is. Yeah. I mean, right. Or, hey, we got taxes, we got this and that going on. There's always something to be a distraction. So, but yeah, it's, being willing to, I think even kind of when we were talking about AI, it's the same thing. Being willing to be open and honest about your business too, and where you're at, and
Yep.
what what
Accountability.
you're looking for. Are you looking? And that's the thing I always, are you looking to create? Are you coming into this industry to create a job for yourself, or are you coming into this industry to create a business? Right? Because there's two
Absolutely.
distinct different things there, right? So
Big differences. Very distinct differences.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Keith, I love that you took an hour out of your day to spend this time with us on this podcast, dude. It truly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, man, thank you. It truly means a lot to us. We love seeing everything you're doing. Our relationship started a handful of years ago at the poorhouse. I know it's kind of been, we kind of bounced back and forth a little bit in between there, but I love seeing the success that your business is having. I love your mindset. I love that you have an outlook on the greater things in life as well as your business and in directing that in the right way. I want to ask you one last question before we get off here to leave everybody with. If Waffle Sticks were to walk into a party, what kind of guest would they be? Not Keith Wright walking in, but if Waffle Sticks walked into a party, what kind of guest would they be?
he'd be the energizer. He'd be the guy right away. Everybody would recognize that somebody's walked into the room. Something's different that just walked into the room, and we're gonna bring he's gonna bring the party with him. The Waffle Sticks. He's
I love it.
there's a certain energy that I think when we show up that happens, and we tell people that and because we've recognized it in the past. So I would definitely say he'd be the guy that interjects the energy and some life into the party for sure.
Awesome. I love that, dude. And I don't disagree with you one bit. And I want to see that dude walking into the party rocking the Waffle Stick song on his boombox, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, Keith, thank you so much. I appreciate your time once again. Is there anything else that we haven't said or you haven't been able to address that you'd like to throw out there for the people?
I think the only thing is I kind of alluded to this a little bit at the beginning. Part of I think some of the adjustments that we're looking at, and even we touched on some of the points where I think the food truck industry is getting a little bloated. Menu prices are getting higher, and sometimes for a lot of good reasons. Because I know there's other higher cost of good items and stuff. I'm not blind to that. We have a relatively low cost of goods, and our COGS are low. Our margins are well. I was kind of explaining to you, we're actually looking, Doug, to go the opposite way. We've already lowered prices once this year, and we're getting ready to be what we want to feel is being disruptive in the industry, where we've looked at our margins so close that we've put our price line here just recently. We have what's called our fast, fresh, and $5 value menu, where you can have any waffle stick you want for $5, or we do 2 waffle sticks and a drink for $8, and we're looking at saying, hey, you know what? If this is if this is what the which we feel it already from the public, is if this is what the public is looking for, and we can accommodate it to some level, right? Everybody has a hard line they got to stand on when it comes to profit and margins and all that, and it's totally understandable. But if I was to say anything to anybody that's out there right now, is as far as another food truck vendor, is if you have the capability of lowering some of your prices, you should at least consider,
Yeah.
because the public is telling us as a whole we are too expensive. We we need to we're going to keep on turning people away from us if we're not. It's not that we need to be the budget option, but we can't be the most expensive item on the block either. So that's the last thing I leave us with, is that we're starting to step into a zone now where we feel that we want to be disruptive. We want to set the tone for other people that are going to say, hey, if they can do it, we can do it. The public is responding to it. We see just in our engagement, social media wise, I've just started this past week to really start to market those things. And the feedback has been phenomenal. People are like, they're telling the people at our window, like, we cannot believe we can get a full meal and a drink for under $10. And I
Now. You
think
can't even get that at McDonald's. You can't even get that at McDonald's.
that's right. You can't get in McDonald's, and so I know everybody doesn't have the capability of doing that, but we're going to. And if there's anybody else that happens to watch this, and if they're looking for a way to try and get them off a stuck spot, I would say get your pencils out, get the sharpener out, and see what you can do to make yourself a little more attractive financially.
I'm butchering this word, but that adaptability that you have in your business is top notch, man, because most people don't have it. And that is a perspective that a lot of people take the opposite way. And they say, well, I understand that people complain about it, but everybody else is doing it, so I might as well do it too. So the adaptability and leading the charge in something that again, and I said this before when we talked about this, I've said it throughout the podcast, but that fits right in with our mentality of we need to 86 our opinions somewhat in the restaurant and food truck industry right now.
Yep. You need to be flexible. Yeah. You need to be willing to adapt. I 100% agree.
Absolutely. Keith, I love that. Keith, again, thank you for coming up. I think that your knowledge and your expertise, I know that you don't like to pat yourself on the back. You're a very humble person, so I'll go ahead and say it for you. But your knowledge and expertise and your success in this business is tenfold when it comes to other people that are up and coming. So thank you for everything that you do, not only for yourself and your family and your brand, but for others in this industry. And we cannot wait to see you out on the American streets again, my brother.
Thanks, bro. I'm waiting for another song coming from you guys. One of these
You
days
got
down
it.
the line.
You got
Appreciate
it.
all you do. Man. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.